So on these, I didn't loosen these. They were just already loose, which is perfectly fine. When the wheel is on, there's no way these can unscrew themselves. So you don't need to torque them like crazy. They just need to be there to hold the rotor on. And like I said before, you don't even really need them. You can leave them there if you want, but they're super unnecessary as long as you have your calipers in place. So let's start with braking caliper free. So on this particular one, or on the rears, you don't really need, no wait, wrong way. Okay. So you just really need a couple of wrenches on this one, on these in the rear, just because they're much smaller, lighter, smaller hardware. You don't have to go at it with anything super heavy. The fronts, you do possibly need a little bit more torque because you have larger hardware up there. I do have ratcheting wrenches, but I'm crazy and I have all the time in the world today apparently, so I will just be using these regular combo wrenches. The cool thing about doing your own brakes is that when you go to a shop, they want to try to charge you, $600, $700, $800 to do brakes. And most people don't know you can just go to AutoZone or an auto parts store and buy, basically, I mean, if you're not running an aggressive pad, you can just buy brake pads. And you can do your own brake service at your house for about 50 bucks and a couple of hours of your time. If you're needing rotors, like I said, the only issue is the screw. If you don't have that screw or you have a different type of screw, it can make the job easier or harder. But seriously, there's no need to pay shop $600, $700, $800, $900 for this kind of a job when you could easily do it yourself in a few hours on a weekend. And you should definitely think about doing a fluid flush every couple of years. I can show you the fluid that came out of this car. It's been in here for about 4 or 5 years and it is black. Now, what happens with your fluid is that with age, you heat cycle it repeatedly, stop and go, aggressive braking, and so forth. And the fluid can break down, just like your oil would in your engine. You get moisture in it, and then you start to have little stupid issues with like a soft pedal, or your braking performance will suffer. The other problem is that regular brake hoses are rubber and they expand. So with bad fluid, it can start to eat up those brake lines, and then you have an issue where your brake lines are expanding with the brake pressure. So my personal recommendation is, if you have the resources and you know how to do it, or you're able to do it, replace your brake lines with steel braided lines, and you'll get so much better pedal feel and your brakes will last a bit longer. Because you don't have the so much rubber breaking down in your system. There. So I'm going to go over to the bench and tear apart the bracket that I just took out. This guy right here. Replace the rubbers. Now these are, I know I said I had power stop on the front. Those are power stop remans in the front. The rears are original. I just sprayed them red. So what I'm going to do is just replace the rubbers, which are still fine. They're just painted on. They look bad. And I'm going to replace all the shims. Okay. So on the rears, it's the same procedure. You basically have your two ports for your sliders. This is what the caliper, the main body of the caliper screws into, and this part is meant to slide. So when you apply the brake pressure, it slides back and forth, and when you release it, it lets go. So now we just apply a little grease. Like with anything, a little lube makes it all easier. And honestly, with most brake jobs, you don't really need to do this. But like I said, this car has 200,000 miles on it. These brake calipers have the original 200,000 miles on them. So, you know, these types of things you want to do. If you live in an area where, you know, there's salt and, you know, harsh conditions, cold, hot, which we don't really get so much here in Southern California. It's always just kind of warm or cool. You don't really need to do this here as often. Like I said, this car has only lived in Southern California, and this is the first time it's being done. But if you live in like the north, where you get snow and a huge variance in weather conditions, or in areas where it's super hot and dry, like Texas or New Mexico or somewhere like that, you definitely want to make sure you service all these parts, because they will dry and crack, and then you get dirt into these things, you get scoring, and your brake performance will suffer. You'll feel it in the pedal when your calipers are not doing what they're supposed to do. There. And these are quite a bit easier than the front because they just pop in. So we'll go ahead and close up with the grease. And by the way, I'll link this grease in the description. But this is the stuff that Honda uses. I use this for, you know, my clutch, when I did the clutch, for the spline. I used it for the bearing. I used it for pretty much anything that's like a moving part or something that requires lubrication. I use it on the axles when I put the new axles in. And this will just really, this is what Honda recommends, and this is what really helps keep things from going all to pieces. You wonder why Japanese cars are so reliable and all of this, and why you can have, you know, I mean, it's not a super fast car, like I said, but it is very reliable for the amount of performance that you get. And it's stuff like this. They've tested this stuff, and this is the kind of product you want to use. And even if you don't have a Honda specifically, you can use something like this, and this will do what you need it to do for your car. Another product that I use from Honda is the Shin-Etsu grease. And I'll go get that in a second, but the Shin-Etsu grease is actually what you put on all your seals, for your windows, your doors, your trunk, and all of that, and that keeps it well lubricated. It keeps it new, keeps it from dry rotting and cracking. And I mean, it's one of the stupidest things that you would ever have to do if you have to replace, you know, door seals and trunk seals and things like that, because they're just all dried out and rotten. So let me go get the Shin-Etsu grease. So this is another product from, or I don't know if it's specifically from Honda or formulated by Honda, but Honda does have a part number for it. It's 08798-9013. I'll also put a link to this in the description. But I put this stuff on the BMWs, I put it on my Honda, I put this stuff, like, if I get a friend that wants me to work on their car, I'll go through their car and, like, rub down all their seals with this stuff. And, you know, if you ever open your trunk and you hear like that, you know, like you're ripping a wrapper off of something, just that sort of plasticky crinkle when you release the trunk or whatever, it's because your seals are dry rotted, or they're dry. You put a little of this stuff on it and it completely goes away. And matter of fact, in my garage, we got new garage doors. I actually went through and lubricated all the seals, because when they painted the doors, they also painted the seal, so the garage, every time you open it, it would stick. So we put this grease on the seal, and I have not, it's been probably 2 or 3 years, I have not had an issue with sticking or weird noises when I open the garage. So definitely check this stuff out. It's great for everything. It doesn't have a smell, so you don't have to worry about putting it on your seals and then smelling like this stuff stinks like crazy. But you don't have to worry about, you know, this smelling up your car or anything. It is literally odorless. So definitely check it out, Shin-Etsu grease. It's super windy today. It's also hot as hell. There's some Santa Ana event going on right now. It is about 88, and wind gusts probably 30 miles an hour. I'm going to pick the one that looks best. They both look equally crummy. I'll go with the better one of the two. Space Grease, which is Permatex Anti-Seize lubricant. I use this stuff on a lot of things as well. When I took these axles out of this car, they were pretty badly worn. I went with my friends in at Import. What are they called? Well, anyway, I'll link their Instagram in the comments. But they hooked me up with these axles. They'd sold me a cat, and the cat wasn't good, so I was having trouble passing smog a couple of years ago. And I just went ahead and bought a MagnaFlow cat, and that was the one I put in yesterday. It was a weld-in, so I just took their cat. The guy cut the bungs and everything off, or not the bungs, but the flanges off, and he welded the MagnaFlow cat in. It was literally the last one they had, and I was like 2 months overdue on my registration because I couldn't get the car to stop getting a check engine light for the catalyst monitor. I tried all these things. I bought new O2 sensors and all of this stuff, and it ended up being the cat the whole time. So I spent the $300 or $400, whatever it was, to replace the cat. And while he was in there, he redid some tips for me. I won't say he's the best welder I've ever seen. The welds are crappy on that cat, and he did cross-thread my O2 sensor. So that O2 is permanently in that cat. But it does the job. I passed smog, and the car ran fine. The tips, on the other hand, look really good. I just need to clean up the exhaust. I do have a friend that does piping and welding and so forth, so I think I want to get the exhaust piping size increased. But for now, it's fine. So you just tighten these things up. I know a lot of people like to go with the torque spec and all of that crap. I don't have time for that, and honestly, I've been working on cars for so long. I've never had an issue with things coming loose on me, especially if you torque it to the point where it just won't really move anymore. A lot of it comes with feel and time. Like, you learn if it's too tight, you're going to snap something off. It's a flimsy little 10mm or something. Don't over tighten it, you're going to break it off. With these, you know, this is a 14mm. I know, you just give it a couple of good whacks and it's good. I've done this job a few times before on this car. I've not had an issue. I've owned this car almost 10 years. So now we drop our shims in. And the pads, remember, the wear sensor goes on the back. That just drops in, super easy. Well, it's supposed to be super easy. There we go. And the front, like so. And then where's my caliper? So here's the caliper main body. Now, I don't have the correct tool to screw this back in. You can get it at an auto parts store. I'll put a link in the description to the tool on Amazon if you want to buy it for your next brake job. But honestly, this is the tool that I'm using. It's a screw type, so you have a, I don't know if you can see it, but you do have a cross pattern here. So all you really need to do is find something that's big enough that you can get in there, and then you just turn it. So I'm going to use these wire strippers and crimpers because it worked on the other side, and this is how like, there are times when I'm in here working on stuff and I don't have the right tool for the job and I don't feel like going to the store, so I'll go through every tool in my tool chest to try to find something that'll work, and 8 times out of 10 I don't have to make that run to the auto parts store or to the hardware store. So that's all screwed in perfectly flush, and now I need to remove this spring clip, which is this guy right here. I'm going to go ahead and replace that. So like I said, most cars are the same. I've done this job on a Volkswagen. It is the same procedure, however the interface is different, so you do need a special tool from Volkswagen, or you can go to the auto parts store. I did find a tool there that worked, but it wasn't that great. All right. Now, take a little grease, which has blown away. Nice and tight. Tight. There. And that's the brake job done on an S2000. The time is now 5:30. I started at about 4. So I did all 4 brakes in about an hour and a half, and now I'm done. So I'll shoot everything with brake cleaner, put the wheels back on, go bed them in, and that's it. Job done.